My friends, let's talk about something that can drive you absolutely insane. You know he feels something. You felt it in his eyes. You've seen it in the way he looks at you, the way he lingers, the way the energy shifts when you're around. A man craving you doesn't automatically mean he will pursue you. And this is where so many people get confused, because we're taught to believe that desire always leads to action, that if someone wants you enough, they'll do whatever it takes to be with you. But that's only partially true. In real life, people don't always act on what they feel, especially when the emotion is strong. Craving is emotional. It's often intense, overwhelming, and even addictive. It lives inside the fantasy of what could be, what might have been, or what still lingers. A man might sit at home thinking about the way you made him feel, your laugh, your touch, the way you saw him differently than anyone else. He might replay moments in his mind, imagining 100 different versions of how to reconnect, and yet none of those imagined moments turn into an actual message. Not a text, not a call, nothing. Why? Because craving is not the same as choosing. When someone craves you but doesn't reach out, they're stuck in an internal loop. They're trapped in a space where emotion is felt but not acted upon. Think of it like someone standing at the edge of a pool, longing to jump in because the water looks incredible, but never quite diving because they don't trust how cold it might be, or if they'll swim well enough once they're in. Craving is safe. It requires nothing. There's no risk in craving. But choosing, reaching out, showing up, initiating a real connection, that requires vulnerability. That requires the courage to face whatever response comes next. So when a man doesn't contact you, it doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't feel anything. It may simply mean he hasn't reached the point where his desire has transformed into action. And that transformation doesn't happen automatically. It takes more than just missing someone. It takes a decision to face discomfort, to put ego aside, to step into the unknown. This is why so many women get caught in the cycle of, why hasn't he called if he cares? The truth is, he might care, but that's not the question to focus on. The better question is he doing anything about it? Because that tells you everything. Craving without action is like a promise that's never made. It feels meaningful, but it doesn't build anything. And if he's not willing to move towards you, despite how he feels, then the craving stays trapped inside him. And you're left waiting on a ghost of something that never materializes. Don't confuse intensity of emotion with depth of intention. One is about feeling, the other is about doing. And love, the kind worth your time, only lives where both exist. Fear can be a powerful force in the dynamic of attraction, and it often manifests in ways we don't immediately recognize. A man may crave you deeply, even fantasize about what being with you could be like, but when faced with the potential reality of reaching out, something holds him back. This isn't about a lack of desire, far from it. It's about an internal battle that for many men feels far scarier than simply staying silent. At the root of this hesitation is often a deep fear of vulnerability. Vulnerability means opening yourself up to another person, exposing your true self, and risking judgment. And for some men, that risk feels too great. It's not that they don't care for you or even fear rejection outright. It's that rejection feels far more personal when it comes with emotional exposure. For many, it's not just about the fear of no, but the fear of what happens after that no. The feeling of having put yourself out there in such a raw, open way, only to have it fall apart. The pain of rejection doesn't simply sting in the moment. It has the potential to linger and chip away at their confidence in a way that can make them feel weak, vulnerable, or unworthy. Imagine how that would feel if you've ever put yourself out there, shared something meaningful with someone, only to have it not reciprocated in the way you'd hoped. You've felt a version of this fear. Now, think about a man who may already be carrying past experiences of rejection or emotional hurt. That fear becomes even more pronounced. He may crave the connection, but he fears what it might do to him emotionally if things don't play out the way he hoped. It's safer to keep the emotional distance intact, even if that means he'll never experience the connection he desires. There's also the fear of vulnerability wrapped up in how he perceives you. If he sees you as someone who is emotionally strong, independent, or unattainable, he may feel unworthy of your attention. His fear isn't just about rejection, it's about being exposed as less than what he thinks you deserve. And in that moment, his ego steps in, trying to protect him from what it believes is an inevitable emotional loss. The craving for you might be real, but the fear of showing his true self, of being seen as not enough, is stronger. So he avoids taking action. This fear doesn't just paralyze him from texting or calling. It can also cause him to second guess every word he says when you're around. He might overthink every message he drafts, worry about how to come across in the best light, and ultimately talk himself out of reaching out altogether. Because for him, the stakes are high. The stakes aren't just about missing a chance to be with you. They're about exposing a version of himself that he's not ready to share yet, the vulnerable, imperfect part that may not measure up to the expectations he believes you have. The fear of vulnerability and rejection isn't about not liking you. It's about how he sees himself and whether he feels strong enough to take the risk that genuine connection demands. Ego plays a surprisingly significant role when it comes to why a man might crave you but never make the move to contact you. It's easy to assume that if someone desires you, they will be willing to throw caution to the wind and take risks. But for some men, ego can act as a powerful barrier between their desire and their ability to act on it. It's not about a lack of feeling. Rather, it's about how they perceive themselves and how they want to be seen. At the core of this is the notion of power. For many men, especially those who are more prideful or used to being in control, the idea of chasing someone, of putting themselves in a position where they may appear needy or overly eager, feels like a loss of that power. In their minds, making the first move or showing interest can feel like they are handing over control, making themselves vulnerable to judgment or rejection. Their ego convinces them that this shift in power dynamics would put them in a weak position, something they instinctively want to avoid. The fear here isn't just about rejection, it's about losing face, the fear of appearing too invested, too eager, or too emotionally available can be enough to stop them from reaching out, even when they feel strongly about you. In this sense, their ego is less concerned with whether you're interested and more focused on maintaining a sense of control over how they're perceived, both by you and by themselves. The idea of being chased or wanted can feel empowering to them, but only if they can maintain the upper hand in the interaction. If they reach out first, they risk being seen as too vulnerable, as if they've lowered their status in some way. For some, this might even feel like an admission that they need something which their ego refuses to accept. This dynamic becomes even more complicated if they believe you might not feel the same way or that you're out of their league in some way. If a man feels as though you are highly desirable or unattainable, his ego can make him believe that making the first move would somehow diminish his worth. In his mind, the desire to reach out may be present, but his ego tells him to hold back, to wait for you to come to him so that he can maintain his sense of self-respect and avoid looking too eager. On a deeper level, this behavior also comes from an inherent fear of being rejected in a way that damages his sense of identity. He doesn't want to feel like he has given you too much of himself or made himself too available, only to have you not reciprocate the same level of interest. If that happens, it wouldn't just be a blow to his pride, it would be a blow to the identity he has carefully crafted for himself. The fear is not just about the pain of rejection itself, it's about how that rejection would affect the image he holds of himself as desirable, confident, and in control. His craving for you is real, but his ego and its desire for control and protection of his self-position can keep him from acting on it. This is why, even when he might desperately want to connect with you, he stays silent, hoping that you'll be the one to break the silence first. And in doing so, maintain the power dynamic he's so unwilling to relinquish. When a man is unsure about your interest, even though he might crave your company, it creates a barrier that prevents him from taking action. The fear of not knowing where you stand in terms of feelings and attraction can paralyze him, making him hesitate to initiate contact. This uncertainty comes from not wanting to make a move unless he's absolutely sure that the risk of rejection won't outweigh the potential reward of connection. When a man is unsure about whether you're truly available or emotionally open, it's easy for him to get caught in a cycle of overthinking, second-guessing every step he might take. Imagine the emotional space he's in. He wants to reach out, but at the same time, he doesn't want to make a fool of himself. He's wondering, is she interested in me, or am I just imagining things? This internal dialogue becomes an obstacle because it causes him to hold back. He might notice small signals that suggest you could be interested, but without clear confirmation, his mind can spiral into doubt. The uncertainty becomes an emotional fog that clouds his ability to act. If he's unsure of your feelings, it's difficult for him to take the leap into vulnerability. For many men, not knowing where can create a feeling of emotional disarray. It feels like stepping into the unknown without any assurance of a soft landing. This fear is intensified by a past experience, maybe a relationship where feelings were misread or they were left in a situation of emotional limbo. In that case, the stakes feel higher. The idea of reaching out only to be met with silence or disinterest can be devastating. And even if he craves you, he may subconsciously protect himself from that potential heartbreak by choosing not to reach out at all. What he needs in many cases is clarity, a simple sign, something that gives him the confidence to move forward without fear of rejection. But if that clarity isn't there, he'll hesitate. He'll stay on the sidelines, watching and waiting, hoping for some indication that you're on the same page emotionally. This is why men sometimes hold back. They don't want to risk rejection if they believe they are misinterpreting your signals. In some cases, he may even prefer the uncertainty, as it feels less risky to him than facing the possibility of outright rejection. When you sense this hesitation, understand that it's not a reflection of his lack of desire. He might deeply want to connect with you, but he's simply not sure how to navigate the emotional space between you. The uncertainty over your feelings can feel like an emotional minefield for him, and rather than risk stepping into that, he may choose to stay still, avoiding the discomfort of misreading signals or appearing foolish. The uncertainty he feels is about protecting himself emotionally. If he's unsure about how you feel, he'll stay on the sidelines, craving but not acting because he can't bear the thought of making a move that could potentially confirm his worst fears, that you're not as emotionally available or interested as he hoped. Despite their desire, hesitate to make a move because they're waiting for permission, a sign that it's safe to reach out. It's not that they lack the interest or the intention to connect with you. In many cases, they want to, but they need something more, reassurance. They need to feel like there's an open space for them to step into without risking rejection or misunderstanding. In their mind, reaching out first might be seen as aggressive or presumptive unless they are sure that you're ready for it too. This behavior comes from a desire for confirmation. It's a subtle, unspoken request for you to give them a cue, a small green light that tells them it's okay to approach, to bridge the gap, and to connect. For these men, it's about not wanting to impose themselves on you or take up space that you haven't invited them to occupy. There's a fear of overstepping boundaries, of coming off as too forward or presumptuous. They are sensitive to how you might perceive their actions, and without some kind of sign from you, they can feel paralyzed. Now, this can happen in many ways, but typically these men are waiting for something like a soft invitation, a reply to their messages that's warmer than usual, an open-ended question that signals you're interested in continuing the conversation, or a body language cue that shows you're comfortable with their presence. In their mind, these little gestures, something as simple as a smile, an engaging response, or even eye contact, act as permission for them to take the next step. Without those, they retreat, unsure whether they are welcome to make the move, even if the desire is there. This need for permission is not just about fear of rejection, but also about creating a space where they feel emotionally safe. They want to feel like they're not intruding on your life or your personal space. If they're unsure about your level of openness or availability, they'll wait for something that signals it's okay to come closer. The hesitation to take action without this go-ahead can feel like a natural part of their emotional process, one that helps them avoid the discomfort of misreading a situation and placing themselves in a vulnerable position without your readiness. This dynamic often plays out when a man feels that he's pursuing someone who has a strong sense of independence or emotional boundaries. He may perceive you as someone who values your space and who may not want the same level of emotional engagement or connection that he's craving. The thought of forcing something into your life that you don't want, even if it means stifling his own desires, he's not avoiding you because he isn't interested. Rather, he's waiting for you to provide that subtle assurance that signals he's not just welcome, but wanted. The absence of that sign leaves him in a state of uncertainty, where he craves the connection, but doesn't feel entitled to make the first move without some form of invitation. Craving someone is often intense, but it doesn't always equate to readiness for a full emotional commitment. A man may feel deeply drawn to you, experience longing, and fantasize about what it would be like to be with you, but still hesitate to make that move because he's not emotionally prepared to invest in the responsibilities that come with a committed connection. Desire is a powerful force, but desire alone doesn't require action or responsibility. It's easy to crave someone when you don't have to show up consistently, manage emotions, or confront the realities of a relationship. What many people fail to realize is that craving is often a surface level emotion. It's driven by physical attraction, excitement, and a desire for intimacy. But when it comes down to it, craving doesn't necessarily involve the deeper emotional work that a meaningful relationship requires. A man may long for your presence, enjoy the thought of being close to you, but when faced with the reality of actually being emotionally available and consistent, he might pull away. It's not that he doesn't care about you, but the commitment needed to turn that desire into something tangible can feel overwhelming, especially if he's not ready for the emotional labor that's part of building a deeper connection. This fear of commitment comes from past experiences. Perhaps he's been burned before, or he's unsure of how to navigate the complexities of intimacy and emotional vulnerability. The longing may be real, but the emotional readiness simply isn't there. He might crave your affection and attention, but the thought of fully opening up, of offering his time, his heart, and his energy on a consistent basis feels daunting. He may fear that if he moves too quickly, it could result in emotional exhaustion, disappointment, or the risk of becoming too dependent on someone else for happiness. This hesitation can also stem from the fact that he's not in a place where he can fully meet your emotional needs. Even though he feels desire, he may recognize that he's not prepared to offer the level of commitment, consistency, or depth you deserve. Instead of acting on his cravings and risking failure, he might choose to stay distant because he knows that he's not ready to show up in the way that's necessary for a healthy relationship. He may think that by pulling back, he's protecting you from disappointment or emotional harm because he's not yet capable of being the partner you need. Craving without readiness leads to emotional distance, even though the desire is palpable. The emotional barrier isn't about a lack of interest, it's about a lack of preparedness to engage in the kind of emotional intimacy that a lasting relationship requires. The man may want to be close to you, but he may not be willing or able to commit in the way that ensures that connection will grow beyond the initial spark of attraction. In the end, craving is only the beginning of a relationship, but without the emotional readiness to follow through, it can remain unfulfilled, existing only as a desire that never materializes into anything more. This dynamic is crucial to understand. He may crave you deeply, but still not take action because he knows that meeting you where you are emotionally requires more than just longing. It requires self-awareness, emotional maturity, and a willingness to give more than just a fleeting desire. Until he is ready to offer these things, the craving remains just that, a wish, a longing, but not a commitment. In conclusion, understanding why someone who craves you might not reach out can be complex, but it's essential to recognize that emotions, especially desire, don't always drive action. Craving someone is powerful, but it doesn't automatically translate to the confidence or readiness to act. Whether it's fear, ego, uncertainty about your feelings, a need for permission, or simply not being emotionally prepared for commitment, these factors play significant roles in why a man might hesitate. The key takeaway is that craving is a feeling, but desire, while strong, doesn't always lead to connection. It's important not to confuse longing for action. Men often hesitate to make the first move because of vulnerability, the risk of rejection, or the emotional work required in truly connecting with someone. These complexities are not reflections of a lack of care, but rather signs of deeper emotional dynamics at play. If you find yourself in this situation, know that someone's craving doesn't always mean they're ready or able to take that next step, even though the desire is clearly there. In relationships, emotional readiness, vulnerability, and the ability to act on desire are just as important as the feelings themselves. Understanding this gives you a clearer picture of the challenges someone might face in making a move. Challenges that are not about you, but about where they are emotionally. So if you're feeling frustrated by their silence, it's helpful to approach the situation with patience and awareness that craving alone isn't always enough to bridge the gap between desire and action.